Hello White Sox fans. How you guys doing tonight? Welcome to another edition of White Sox Daily Live. My name is Ian Eskridge. I am joined once again by my co-host,
What's that word?
the Danny Miller. How you doing, Danny?
You know what? I've been better, man. It's good to be back. After spending about a week and a half or so in sunny Cancun, Mexico, with the wife for our anniversary. Um, you know, I did the one. I will say one of the things I missed while I was gone was having my moment to hang out with you on Monday or Tuesday evening and vent my frustrations about this White Sox ball club. But before we get into anything tonight, I just want to give a huge shout out to our friend of the show, AAA Jeff Cohen, for stepping in and putting together a nice show with you while I was out. So thanks to him for that.
Yeah, it was a good
Always
time.
interesting. Yeah, always interesting stuff coming from him. It's nice to get somebody who is as close as he is to the minor league system on the show and have a chat. So I think you guys did a wonderful job. And thanks again. But yeah, I'm doing all right, man. Like I said, the wife and I were in Cancun, Mexico, and we got back late last week and almost immediately got hit in the face with a ton of bricks that is COVID. So, good end to well, I should say a pretty crappy end to a great vacation. But I'm here. I'm on the mend. So I apologize if I sound a little stuffy or have a cough or two here and there throughout the show tonight. But we're on the backside of this thing now and getting better. So anywho, man, how you doing? How was your time while I was away?
It was pretty good. Obviously, yeah, I got to hang out with Jeff, and that was a good time. Not really a whole lot of positive to say from the White Sox, of course. Um, but yeah, I mean, other than that, everything was pretty chill. Summer's obviously winding down, and you know, not really anything crazy going on. No fall baseball for the most part. My kid's got practices for his team. That's pretty much about it. A couple of shows here and there. That's all. Yeah, but I mean, things were good. Minor league season just wrapped up on Sunday, so um, that was nice to a point. I'm gonna miss it. But I only get to really miss it for a little bit because the Arizona Fall League kicks off here in a couple days. So
Yeah, we got
that's
about a
nice.
week break. So I actually wanted to ask you how you felt about that because as bad as things have been on the south side, and we'll get into more of that as the show goes on, but especially now we're going to be missing Lewis Robert, one of the few bright spots that we've had to watch throughout the season. He's going to be shut down for the rest of the remainder of the season here. This next week of not having any minor league games, of all people have been saying it for for the better part of this year, as if it wasn't for the minor leagues, you really wouldn't have anything to kind of keep you going on the baseball front. So I need to check in on your mental health right now. Like, how are you holding up with no minor league games this week?
You know, it's nice to have a little bit of a break, and the fact that it's not really that long of a break is nice with the fall league. And the other awesome. I mean, we'll talk about this later when we get into the AFL roster. But I mean, there's going to be 8 guys from the White Sox there, so pretty
Yeah, exciting
much,
stuff.
any of the games that are streamed, no matter what, I'm going to see at least a couple of the White Sox prospects playing. Whether it be one of the relief pitchers, one of the starters, or one of the we got two infielders and an outfielder. So I mean, regardless of I don't know exactly. I haven't looked at the streaming schedule yet for the fall league, but um, there's going to be a pretty decent amount of Desert Dogs games streamed. So I mean, there will be stuff, just not as frequent, obviously, as the minor leagues, and just like the parent club, other than individual successes, we'll get into this later when we do the minor league wrap up. But I mean, realistically, there wasn't really a ton of winning going on down there either, and we'll get into that as we go along.
Yeah.
As we stand right now, the White Sox are 60-96.
Heesh.
Woof. And they are losing
Quickly
12-4 right now. So that's going to be 60-97. I'll ask you just to be polite. But what are the odds that the White Sox do not lose 100 games?
Slim to none.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, we look at the last I don't know, what is it, 6 series now with the White Sox. What if they won 3 games for 4 games or something? I don't. Nah,
They
they did win a couple last week,
managed
right?
to
So,
they managed to
so
win a series, shockingly. So,
but yeah, I mean, overall, generally, I mean, I guess we could go back to the beginning of the season that it's been pretty ugly all the way around. But the last few weeks feel like it's even been uglier. I should, it has not been enjoyable all year, and it seems to have only gotten worse as the season's gone on, which I guess is to be it's to be expected when you trade away any piece that was worth any kind of value at the deadline. So, um, fortunately for us, the prediction that maybe the White Sox go on some kind of second half tear after the deadline and blow some draft position. Fortunately for us, that prediction did not come true.
not an issue.
Yeah, no. So my only hope now is that because of this tank job, that we do get some value with those early draft picks, and maybe Mike Shirley and company can pull a rabbit out of their hat and get us something to be happy about here, as they have done the last 2 drafts or so. You know, I just need something to look forward to, man. But I guess that's a long way
that's
to answer
that's
your
about
question.
that's about all that you'll have to look forward to, is that they're going to have more than likely a top 5 pick. That's pretty much about it. I mean, I haven't looked at the Tankathon website, but last I heard they were 4th worst record in baseball, and I mean they haven't won. Let me see here, Tankathon 2024. Let's take a look. See here. Right now, they are 4th worst, and I do not see them catching the Rockies for 3rd, because they've got their 3 games better record than the Rockies. So I don't see them catching them. But you never. I mean, if the Rockies do something in the last 6 games, I mean, it's possible. But I
find that unlikely, but
yeah, exactly. I find it very unlikely. So, you just hope for a top 5 pick, and hopefully, we do well in the lottery and don't end up, dropping back to
10th or 11th.
Exactly. I mean, that would be such a White Sox thing to happen, but
I mean, why not?
at this point. But yeah, right now I think they are. I'll look at that. I'll look it up real quick here. I think they are 23 and a half games back, if I remember correctly.
Is that all? God, I feel like that's where we were 2 weeks ago when I was here.
Yeah, last. Well, I mean, they didn't do.
They did win a couple of games here and there, I guess, but
yeah, they did. I wish they wouldn't have, because there's really no reason for it. But
well, it's the same thing though. Is if you look at those draft lottery odds, the top 3 teams, I believe, all have the same percentages. So being the 4th team only drops you into the 2nd tier of percentages and number of balls in that lottery bin, if you will. So their odds of picking high are still fairly decent. But like you say, you know, it would be the White Soxiest of White Sox things, especially during this 2023 season, that they would come out dead last in that lottery and drop, about a third of the way down the draft board. So I expect nothing less at this point, to be
Yeah.
completely honest with you.
No, yeah. So the Royals already lost tonight. They were on a 6-game win streak up until tonight, and they lost 6-3 to Minnesota. But they were on a 6-game win streak, and they were starting to catch up to the White Sox, and that would have been funny. But it doesn't look like that's going to come to pass because they've got five. I believe they've got 5 games left, as do the White Sox. So even if the White Sox lose out and they win out, the White Sox still going to finish with a better record than them. Yeah. So as you had mentioned when we started up here, Luis Robert out for the rest of the season with a sprained MCL. So he will not eclipse that 40 home run mark. He'll finish with 38 home runs, 80 RBIs, and 20 stolen bases. He slashed 264, 315 with an 857 OPS. Not bad. I'll take that.
No, it's nice to see a full season out of him, and the potential that we hoped there had mostly been realized. So, aside from some mental lapses in the outfield, uh, like I mentioned, he was the lone bright spot or I shouldn't say he was the lone bright spot, but he was the lone consistent, nightly watch kind of player that we had to look at. There wasn't, there were other guys that did some things, with the ball club this year, but there was only one guy that you could expect to do those kinds of things on a nightly basis. And, it's unfortunate that he's not going to get that 40 home run mark because it felt like it was coming. After he hit that bit, the bomb, what was it, 2 nights ago?
Yeah.
Uh, I thought to myself, finally, we're gonna have a 40 home run guy back on this roster, and it didn't happen. And I know it's just numbers. It's just, especially now. I mean, it's like garbage time numbers for him. But either way, it was just one more thing I was hoping to kind of hang my hat on for this season because there wasn't much else.
No, that's for sure. The one good thing about that's happened, at least a little bit, is that Eloy, hit one out tonight, and he's had a little bit of power kind of creep back into his game. Every once in a while here. I think he's at 18 home runs after the one he hit tonight. So nothing, too crazy. But it's far short of what everybody expected out of him, and he's been hitting. If I remember correctly, I saw on a tweet somewhere last week that his ground ball percentage is up, which, if you've been watching the games, you probably noticed that he's been hitting a lot more ground balls this year. And obviously that's kind of, wreaked havoc on his power numbers, doubles galore instead of going into the seats, which is unfortunate. But, as far as the White Sox go, the actual baseball team anyway, do you have anything else to talk about as far as the White Sox go?
Not really. Um, all I can say is, I chose the hat that I'm wearing tonight. It says, if you can't see it, it says freedom
Yeah, freedom in
across the
6 days,
back. And
my friend. Freedom in 6
that's
days.
it's basically what I'm looking at here is, the season's going to come to an end, right as we are rolling into our next show. And freedom from the 2023 season, at least for, as far as regular season baseball goes, is nearing. And there is something almost relieving about that. Now, as we get into the off season, we'll we'll see if our sorrows lighten some. We still have a lot of question marks surrounding Chris Getz and the new hires, which we'll get into a little bit. But The other side of that coin is there's almost a renewed sense of hope for me as well too, because even though these hires came, well, Chris Getz himself came from within the organization, and we've spoke a lot about the process of that whole thing and or lack thereof. um, you kind of hope that just a new voice and a new uh mindset, a new brain, something changes. Whether that happens remains to be seen, but I have hope.
Yep.
It's all I have.
Yeah. So I
How
wanted
do you
to.
feel about all this, man?
So yeah, I wanted to move into the Chris Getz hires here, and I just kind of wanted to pick your brain on some of this stuff.
Okay. Hopefully, I can come up with something
I mean, it's just
smart.
it's kind of I know that we're we've seen the hires here, and we'll get into the individual ones here in a moment. But like, kind of the weird thing about it is that right now, and I kind of imagine that we have to wait until the season's over completely and until we get into the off season here to see what Chris Getz actually does. But I'm just kind of curious because you've got guys that are taking up positions that weren't there before, or taking up positions that were already there. Um, and I'll start with Josh Barfield, who was hired away from the Diamondbacks. He was the director of player development for the Diamondbacks, and as you see, the young guys with the Diamondbacks, they brought up a ton of guys here in the last roughly calendar year, or like a little bit over a calendar year. And the kids, to steal from the White Sox, the kids can play.
Right.
There's some good players that they brought up, and I'm pretty sure, not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that Corbin Carroll probably gonna end up grabbing Rookie of the Year. Um,
That's a fair assessment.
yeah, and like they've just got a bunch of young talent. But he's hired as the assistant general manager. The previous assistant general manager, Jeremy Haber, is still with the White Sox. This is what I'm talking about when I ask about like these murky kind of things that go. It always seems to be with only with the White Sox. When
Right.
somebody
Right.
else in another organization gets hired, the person that had that position before is gone. But with the White Sox, Jeremy Haber's still here, and we
Right.
have another assistant GM. So how are we going to have more assistant GMs, because they say
Yeah,
that
an
there's
assistant
probably
to the
more people.
assistant.
Yeah, exactly. They say that more people are going to get hired, and there's rumors, kind of, you know, uh, at a low rumble that some more of them are going to be from the Royals, which I don't understand why you would want that. But do you think Haber's gone, or do you think he's sticking around?
That's a great question. Uh, Unfortunately, I really don't even know how to answer it because we're seeing some things this season in the White Sox front office and from all the talking heads that are, you know, the same but different. You know what I mean? We can go back to the fact that we have not had a front office changeover mid-season, in our lifetimes, and that's kind of new. But yet at the same time, we saw a hiring process that was completely rushed, uh, and made an excuse of that for the fact of we have to do this quickly because it's owed to the fans to not waste any time. So that kind of thing sounds the same for what I expect from this organization.
Yeah.
So the wishy-washiness there kind of leaves me guessing as to what's going on when you talk about guys like Haber being around. Um, it is strange, but at the same time, with Josh Barfield, is he actually going to have the designation of assistant general manager, or are they going to find another position? Are they going to create another position for him? Are they going to give him a different title? The way I see it is, I'm just happy that the skill set is coming. And he's coming from an organization like you point out, has brought up some young talent here recently. And as a matter of fact, I'm not even watching the White Sox game tonight. I have
Oh, I've got it on right next to me. You're not missing
I
anything.
see. I've got the Halos and the Rangers on, but you know, when I first turned it on, I just saw the A on the TV, and I thought, oh, maybe I'll catch some of this D-backs team, and I was like, oh no, had to look a little bit closer. That is not the Arizona logo.
Oh, Sebi Zavala's up right now.
So, but that was kind of my hope, was I would be able to see some of these young kids a little bit more that they have been bringing to their system, because, you know, Josh Barfield is tied directly to these young players. So, you know, I wish I knew what was going to happen with Haber. I really do,
It's
because I'm
weird.
with you.
Yeah.
You would think that if the organization was fed up with Kenny and Rick, and their bickering and their inability to agree on anything, and Rick finding out that Jake Berger was traded by walking past Kenny Williams' office.
Hey, Grimtall,
Hey,
thanks for
thanks
the
for the
resub.
resub.
Yeah.
All of the infighting, and all of the just the filth that we have been hearing is coming from within the organization. You would think that the guy that was directly tied to both of those guys would have been gone in that hailfire of or the hailstorm of firings, but he wasn't. And there's been no news of him losing his title or graduating to another position, which is another thing this organization is known for. Hey, you suck at your job here. We're just going to elevate you beyond that point and put somebody else in your place. We haven't even heard that. So everything's a little murky right now, and I don't even know how I feel about any of it, to be completely honest with you. See,
Yeah.
to be honest with you, I'd rather hear your thoughts on this, because we often share a brain on a lot of these things, but I feel like you are asking this question because you probably have something up your sleeve.
Well, I mean, we were talking about, you were mentioning that are they going to create a new position for Josh Barfield? And the thing is that the on the website he's listed as the assistant general manager, and then right below him is Jeremy Haber. So, like, I don't get it. Like, I would kind of think that he was just asked to stick around and fulfill like the day-to-day stuff while Getz was getting his stuff in order. But I mean, I don't know for sure. But Barfield comes over from the D-backs, where again he's the director of player development. Chris Getz was the director of player development for the White Sox. The White Sox do not have a
Currently,
director
right?
of player development. So is Josh Barfield going to kind of take on a dual role where he's like the director of player development / AGM? Possibly, I guess. I mean, I don't know for sure. I just know that like with the White Sox, it's a we thought they got rid of 13-4 now, 14-4. Jeez Louise.
Yeah, that's
They
right.
they get rid of Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams, and so you think that there's going to be oh boy, Cubs just lost on a routine fly ball dropped by Seiya Suzuki. Yikes.
Ooh.
That's because they were up. I think they were up like 6-1 at one point, and then Ronald Acuna hit a home run. Who's single-handedly taken me to the World Series in my fantasy baseball league. But despite getting rid of Kenny and Rick, you still see all these names of guys who were Kenny guys and guys that were Rick Hahn guys that are still filling this roster of personnel. That the of all the operations guys. And I'm kind of left wondering, okay, well, all these guys are still here. I think that there's going to be some sort of house cleaning. Um, but at this point of the year, when you're going to lose 100 games, and it's past the trade deadline, past the minor league season, past any time where you're going to sign any kind of free agent to help a team that's injury riddled. Which, by the way, Tyler Naquin was brought up from Charlotte to replace Luis Robert. I didn't mention that earlier, so that's exciting. But yeah, just like the whole thing, just kind of like just the whole way thing, everything has happened is just kind of strange, And like, I mean, I understand that they're not going to just like go scorched earth in the entire front office and just fire everybody. But
Yo.
I mean, if let me just double check here because I think he's still there.
Oh boy.
Let me look here. Let's see.
Goodness, 15-4.
Assistant Director of Player Development, Ken Williams Jr., still listed. So
Really?
yeah, and he was taken out of the minor league operations side of things, from what I've been told, a couple months ago, and he was made the assistant of the executive vice president, which now the only special assistant to the executive vice president is now Todd Steverson, which is also awesome that he's still on the payroll.
Yeah, excuse you. I
so ridiculous.
I'm sorry, but I didn't bring my barf bucket to the show tonight. Like, are you kidding me? One of the most disgustingly failed hitting coaches in the history of this baseball club just keeps getting job after job somehow. I don't get it. I don't know. Maybe a lot of these hires and a lot of these guys that are staying around for whatever reason is just because, and I guess you kind of touched on this a little bit already, but maybe it's just a familiarity thing for Chris Getz as he gets, in his new job and career here as a a GM and president of operations. Um, you know, eh, there's something to be said about familiarity, but at the same time, this is a miserably failed ball club from top to bottom. And I don't know what the rush is. I don't understand that, when Jerry Reinsdorf, of all people, the guy who usually avoids the media like the plague, is going to come out and tell us that he owes the fans to do this expeditiously because he feels like he owes it to us because you guys waited through this rebuild. You know what? If you felt like you owed it to us, you should have done it right the first time instead of cheaping out on some of this stuff and holding your guys back. I'm sorry. And now you're going to hold us back even longer with ancillary hires and inside job stuff, and then try to spoon feed us this crap that you're doing it for us. Like, I'm sorry, you are not doing anything for us. This is not happening any quicker. The best way to rip a Band-Aid off is fast. So I honestly would have said, you know what? You say, yeah, I get it. You're not fired the entire front office. I say, why not? Like, if we're going to do this, let's burn it to the ground. We've already sat through the last 6-7 years of a full on rebuild that, I mean, bore next to no fruit, right? If we're going to do this again, why not do it all the way? Do it all the way. Go get some proven talent on the field. Go get some proven talent in the front office, and let's make this thing happen, man. Let's just give us something to be excited about. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I just,
I mean, only one team can win the World Series every year, right?
Yeah, Yeah, for
So,
sure.
but give me a sustained window of winning where I can actually watch exciting baseball. I not want to turn the game off by the 3rd or 4th inning, and it's only April or May. Like, come on, man. You know what I mean? So anyway, anywho, these are all things I've said before. I'm not going to keep going on. Sorry, I don't want to hijack the bitch fest here.
Ladder Enjoyer says that Blake Snell is a Bulls fan and friends with Zach LaVine. Yeah, and and Blake
I
Snell is.
wanted him when he was a free agent last time. Just saying.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And he is a fellow Twitch streamer, so that's cool. And to close out the conversation on Josh Barfield, I will also bring up that his brother, Jeremy Barfield, who was drafted, I believe, by the Red Sox. No, not the Red Sox. The A's. I don't know. I forget who he was drafted by. Maybe the Blue Jays. But he was drafted, and he is a Twitch streamer, and he goes by the name of Flank Thomas. And for those of you who do not know Flank Thomas, go on YouTube and do a search on Flank Thomas, and you'll see all sorts of videos pop up from other streamers talking about Flank Thomas. And I'll just, I'm not gonna mention what happened between him and their father on stream, but just go ahead and use that Google machine and check that out.
Really, I have not heard anything about this.
Yeah, you've been gone for a
I,
couple
I
of
would,
weeks. I would have told you.
yeah. So this is just recent then.
No, this was
Gotcha.
like a couple of years ago, but
Okay.
yeah. So
I just like if we're gonna talk about his sons, why not bring up good old Jesse while we're on the show here tonight, huh?
Jesse
Yeah, their
Barfield.
father.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
What about him? Dude had a
dad.
cannon
Well,
for an arm.
didn't you say that they said they had daddy? Isn't that their
Yes.
dad or no?
Yes, it is. Yes, it
That's what
is.
I thought.
Yeah. That was who the thing was. The issue was with. Next in line to be talked about here is Brian Bannister, who got hired away from the Giants. He worked with Ethan Katz over in San Francisco, and he is the senior advisor to pitching, which I found kind of a interesting wording. Senior advisor to pitching. So I don't know. Did you read the MVP machine?
I did not.
Okay, I've got it if you want to borrow it. It's an interesting read. Brian Bannister is featured in that book, and
Seen a relation to Floyd?
he's his son. Yes.
I thought so. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah,
Another White Sox tie.
checks multiple boxes here. You get the Kansas City Royals affiliation for Chris Getz, and then you get the insular nepotism hire because of Floyd Bannister, who also finished out his career with the Royals. So he's an analytics guy. He was one of the early adopters of analytics and of high frame rate cameras used with, paired with data. And he used it to resurrect, resurrect his career. Ultimately, he did not have the stuff to be a 10-year major league pitcher, but he did find some help with data and use that to prolong his career in the major leagues. And one of the things that he did for San Fran is he more or less sets up like a pitch lab out in the outfield before the game and takes data on these guys throwing their pitches in the outfield And he takes this data and he takes a look at it and figures out like pitch grips and all that stuff, see where the axis of the ball is and all that stuff, and feeds information to the pitchers to help them become the best that they can be. Even if you're talking about like a Tanner Banks where you got a lower fastball, lower velocity fastball. He'll take that data and he will say this is what's going to be your out pitch, and this is where you should throw it, and this is why you should throw it, and this is what's
So
going to make you better.
basically, it's almost like having Codify right in your outfield out there,
Yep.
live and in person, which fantastic. I mean, okay, I can get behind this because, as we've talked about a lot these past few years, is uh, the thought and the rumor that the White Sox have been behind the curve when it comes to using tech
Woefully.
to, yes, to progress uh the development of some of their players. And if this is the kind of thing that can be expected from some of these hires, I hate to say it because I feel like we've said this in the past with some of the moves that have been made, but it sounds like a step in the right direction. Will that translate? I don't really know because again, we were led to believe that new tech was being trickled into the organization, 4 or 5 years ago, and more tech-minded people that embraced those things were being trickled into the organization, only to find out later after these things have been leaked that their analytics and tech department was still among the lowest in Major League Baseball. So, uh, but yeah, I'm down. I'm down with that. That's a great report, and I appreciate that info from you, Ian.
Yeah, like that is um the thing is that when guys go through the minor leagues and they're working with the pitching coaches down there, and they go to now we have an onboard pitch lab here, which quite a few teams don't, so that's good. But it's nice that when they it would be nice if when they get to the major leagues that they're not done improving. You know,
Right,
like
exactly.
I would like to see that continue, and for them to continue to get better. And that's what he says. One of the things that he wants to do is he wants to stay ahead of the curve. He wants to set the curve. He doesn't want to be the person who's late to the party on this stuff. And so, like, cool. Let's see. I mean, it seems like a great hire. He's not going to be, he's not on bench staff, necessarily,
Right.
but per my understanding, in San Fran, is that even though he's not technically bench staff, is that he was always around, and he was always looking at like Rapsodo numbers and looking at biomechanical data to see, if there's something going on with the guy's mechanics, if his command's off. I mean, it would just it would be nice if one of these hires pays dividends and isn't just kind of one of those things where we go, okay, well, he helped so and so, but like the other 15 guys that he's dealt with don't really do anything. It would be nice to see like everybody take a step forward, especially with what we've been watching this year. It's just been ugly. Ladder Enjoyer says maybe him and Gio can stream together from the clubhouse after we sign them both in December. I don't know if I mean, I kind of doubt Gio comes back after what's happened here, but you never know.
Yeah, I imagine that him and his dad both, his dad being a pretty vocal advocate for his son, and you can't blame him for doing so. And he does it with, class and style, so kudos to him for that. But
Yep.
I can't imagine that, Luke going through what he went through, during his contract talks or non-existent contract talks, and his father saying, "Yeah, we'll give you a second chance." You know, even though his track record as a pitcher on the South Side has not been great, and is probably even worse since he left the South Side, unfortunately for him. It does seem like you probably get him back fairly cheap.
He
But
hasn't been
being the
doing
White Sox,
super hot in Cleveland, although I think his last 2 games he's pitched pretty well. I will also mention Ladder. If I remember correctly, it was Lucas Giolito against Blake Snell in the championship game in 2020 during the COVID lockdown when MLB was doing the MLB The Show one player per team tournament. I believe that was the championship game, and I think Snell beat Giolito, if I
was it
remember
Giolito or
correctly.
was it Carlos Rodon?
No, it was Giolito. Carlos
I thought it
Rodon.
was Hard Carl.
No, he plays. He actually they play together, but he does mostly Call of Duty. He did play
Oh, that's right.
some MLB The Show, but he was um,
Right.
Carlos
Giolito
and
was the one single representative that I totally forget that
right,
there was only
yeah,
one per team.
and yeah, Carlos and his cousin Ethan would play with they played with Gio, they played with Adam Engel, they played with Dane Dunning.
Dan Dunong.
Dan Dunong, and then also one of our one of my buddies who's also a Twitch streamer, Sasquatch, who's very good at Call of Duty. He also played with them pretty often. He still plays with Geo when Geo's on. 3.1 innings pitched, 5 earned runs for Gio today. Okay, so he did not pitch good today. Okay, 6.66 ERA for the Guardians for Gio. So, all right, well that's cool. Yeah, maybe he will be cheap. I kind of have an idea that that somebody's going to see Gio and still throw money at him, saying we can fix that guy. And I
Yeah,
wouldn't be
there's still a lot of potential there.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Ethan Katz says, "Hey, look, Bannister's here. Me and him, did some stuff over in San Fran that really helped some guys resurrect their careers. It might be, if you're not getting like any crazy offers, maybe White Sox can scoop him up for 3 years or something, and we literally can fix that guy. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Katz is the guy who, fixed him the first time. Yeah, it would be nice. I mean,
And
especially with biomechanics stuff going on. Like with him actually, he knows how to, do SQL database stuff as well. Him and CJ can sit there and whip up SQL searches, and feed all the information to all their databases and everything, and figure out what's going on with the biomechanics and the all the stats that they get back.
the only
And
thing that bugs me about that whole conversation and biomechanics with Lucas Giolito is I feel like this is a guy who has changed his delivery 3 or 4 times already in his not so long major league career. Uh that cannot be good for consistency. I know that these guys are professionals and they practice at levels that most can only dream of. Most people can't even imagine, and the repetitiveness of those the drills and the the side sessions and all these things that they do to get themselves ready for a major league season. But you know, again, I'm being a pitcher in my past and nowhere near the level of these guys. Trying to say that I'm some guru or anything. I really know anything about anything, but it just seems like I think I would find it difficult to continually change my delivery and find some level of
you would think.
consistency.
Well, I mean, one thing that we do know for sure is that doing it during the season is generally
Oh,
never good, and it
that is frowned
generally,
upon.
yeah, it never works. It never seems to work for anybody, and It was kind of one of those things. Here's something that's kind of been burning in my brain for a little while.
Okay.
Alec Hansen, drafted, in the second round, should have been a first-round talent, drafted out of Oklahoma. Had some command problems in Oklahoma. He comes to the White Sox. The White Sox fix his mechanics. The next year, he goes out and leads the minor leagues in strikeouts. In the offseason, he decides to go and get stronger and build up his legs, completely loses his release point, can't throw strikes anymore, then starts losing his velocity. Sound familiar? After watching that happen to Alec Hansen, I don't know. It just kind of strikes me as weird that Lucas Giolito during the lockdown did the exact same thing, and the exact same thing happened to him.
Yeah, that's kind of funny, isn't it?
Or the what was it? The strike year.
Right. That's what it was. It was a strike year. You're right. But to have that knowledge of that happening to somebody, I mean, intimately, it's happening right in front of your face,
like that.
Right? And you're part of the same team and the same organization, and you're watching it happen, and then to turn around and say, well, you know what, didn't work for him, but it's going to work for me. It seems a bit odd. I will give you that.
It just struck me as weird. Like if you're sitting here watching this from a distance, and you know the guy, and you watch this happen, like why would your first thought be, I really need to get some more cake, that'll help me. That'll fix all my problems,
Watching torque videos in the off season. Shake them cakes, baby.
Yeah, I gotta wonder, like was the wife unhappy that he lost all that cake, and that's what ended up happening there? I mean, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, Anywho, so the third hire that was made, and this one for me was kind of just a head scratcher, So Gene Watson is hired as the director of player personnel. And longtime scout. He's been with the Royals. I think he was with the A's. It was either the A's or the Angels. I think maybe it was the Angels. Of the two teams, okay, I can give the Angels. They've signed some free agents. Okay, now how have those contracts worked out for the Angels? Terribly. But and then the Royals, they never sign free agents that are like that really do anything. So I don't know. I found that one kind of curious, and of course, again, we've got this, got the Royals ties, as it has to be. Everybody's got to have some sort of Tony La Russa, Jerry Reinsdorf connection or a Royals connection in order to get hired at this place, which actually I didn't mention this with Josh Barfield, but obviously his dad, Dave Stewart, was on the Blue Jays, and there's, definitely some, since Dave Stewart was down there, there's definitely some links as to why Josh Barfield got that job down there. But Gene Watson's kind of one of those things, where it's like I've heard from multiple places that he's a good guy, but when I hear somebody say, yeah, he's a really nice guy, that's what people say about guys that are generally not really that great at their job. Yeah, but he's a really nice guy.
She's got a great personality.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's that same kind of thing, It's like, can you think of any, like, when you think of pro player acquisition with the Royals, Do you really? I mean, like I can't come up with anything that was really like one of those like mind blowing free agent signings. Is like everybody, the guys that the Royals signed, they always killed the White Sox, but they would hit like 230. I mean, they'd hit 400 against the White Sox, but against everybody else, they'd hit like 200. So it's not like they
Yeah.
really ever signed anybody of any like great consequence.
Yeah. I mean, if your end goal was to just pick the Sox killers, you did a
Yeah,
fantastic
they're
job
good at
there. But
that. Yeah,
you didn't find the world beaters. You know what I mean? Like they're just no. And
yeah,
I have to laugh at the chat here. Grimtal says Gordon Beckham said that about Chris Getz, meaning he's a nice guy, he's a really good dude. Uh yeah, that's like one really good dude calling another really good dude good dudes.
yeah,
We're talking about a couple of guys who were never really good at their jobs, calling each other, "Oh, no, he's a great guy. He's a good dude." You know, uh, neither one of you ever lived up to expectations, so kudos.
yeah. Um, yeah. So Ladder Enjoyer says, didn't Watson have a big role in going after Cole Reagans, or am I misremembering? And this is the thing, I don't have any idea. I don't know actually. Like I haven't really done a whole lot of digging into him as far as like trying to find stuff, but like I haven't heard anybody else talking about any great accomplishments that the man's ever had. Um, what I can't say is that Cole Reagans he pitched really well against the White Sox a few weeks back, and actually John Rudels and I, when we went and saw the Royals against the Mets, when we were watching old Danny Mendick in left field. Cole Reagans actually pitched for Kansas City and pitched really, really well that night. And yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
he's had a nice nice last like 2 months of the season. Um, so I mean, I guess if he grabbed him, cool. I mean, I just you know I don't really know. I guess and this is one thing I had thought about doing, is trying to deep dig, do the deep dive into the Royals minor leagues, because a lot of the time you can find out who the scout is that found a particular guy that they drafted. Um, and I've thought about kind of like trying to do a deep dive into that and see if I could figure out exactly who he's exactly who this guy has found, like what's it, like Kazanis with the White Sox, he's got like lefty pitchers are like generally his like
Right.
his thing. He's Mark Burley, and then like recently Shane Murphy's another one of those guys that was undrafted left-handed guy from Arizona that he found. And there's a bunch of those guys. But like everybody's always got like that one guy that they found that's came out of nowhere, his 40th round draft pick that ends up becoming a good major leaguer, and I don't know if he's got that guy. I would like to find out, but yeah, I guess we'll find out how we'll see how this whole thing shakes out once the season ends. Like once the World Series is over, and everybody starts making personnel moves. We'll see who's gone, who's not. And we've been told also that there will be more hires, so we'll see who else gets hired.
Yeah.
Blah blah. Woof woof.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing about some of these hires I will say is, I wasn't really holding my breath for what was going to happen in the front office this offseason. But, as we've been speaking about here for the last 45 minutes or so, uh, I would say that, a handful of these guys are decent additions to the front office.
I'm not
And,
mad about any of them, but
oh, I'm not mad either. I just don't wanna put too much into it yet because we haven't seen anything from them yet,
yeah,
and, they might be perfect fits for these jobs. The unfortunate question I have is whether or not the organization lets them do what they are capable of. And I'm sorry that I have to feel this way, but I'm like a girlfriend scorned here. I am gun shy about everything at this particular moment. I'm not even like a girlfriend scorned. I'm like a battered wife. You can tell me everything's gonna be fine before you unload the change cup in the center console of your car at my face. You know what I mean? Like, or worse. You know what I'm saying? So like I hate to, and maybe that's a bad analogy, but you know, I don't, I can't let myself let go too much. You know what I mean? I don't want to, I have to embrace the suck right now. It's the only way I'm going to be able to continue being a White Sox fan. I have to admit that this is a crap hole organization and has been for a long time, and I can't let the best of my hope take over. So I do still have hope, and I do like the moves, but I am no longer in the I'm going to give you an opportunity. I'm in the now I'm going to wait and see mode now. You don't get the benefit of the doubt anymore. I'm sorry, and maybe that's unfair to these guys as they're walking in the door their first day on the job, but you know, it's because of your predecessors and because of the organization that you now currently work for that you don't get the benefit of the doubt anymore. Now it's a prove it to me thing. I have to see it before I give you any credit or accolades whatsoever.
Well, I mean, I would be lying if I said that I haven't talked to several people that have been, that either have been or are uh, members of this organization that don't think that Chris Getz is any good at his job. So, uh, you know, it's a wait and see thing. We'll see. Um, are things going to change with the way that with the way the org operates? I don't know. It's kind of one of those things where we just wait and see. Like who knows? We don't have any idea whether they're going to change their philosophy in the draft room, whether guys that they wanted to take were superseded by somebody else, which I've heard quite a few stories about, players getting chosen by people that don't have anything to do with the draft and foregoing drafting other guys,
It's
namely
just
Alec
ridiculous.
Thomas, who was just playing against the White Sox tonight, not drafted by the White Sox because somebody's feelings were hurt over something, and because supposedly he was asking for a little bit too much money, and here he is, he's in the major leagues, and instead, we draft Steele Walker, which I mean technically he made it to the major leagues, I believe before Alec Thomas, but he didn't stay.
No, he didn't have that stickability,
Yeah, and I mean to be honest,
unfortunately.
he shouldn't.
Great baseball name.
Yeah, great baseball name, and again, he's a really nice guy, you know, but like just the skill set wasn't there.
Right.
So I don't, we'll see, um, yeah. So and like, and speaking of changing philosophies, like what are the White Sox going to do uh, about their international signings? It's every year you see the White Sox trading away cash, and this year they traded away cash and got two prospects from the Dodgers, and then the Dodgers went out and signed this Korean guy that's got like really nasty stuff. But like the thing is that they traded away $1 million of international cap space. Why do you have $1 million just sitting around? Go sign some people. It's a numbers game. The more guys you get, the better chance you have of finding somebody that is able to take that next step. Even if you don't think that, like, I mean, obviously take your best, use your best judgment. If you think the guy's going to be a scrub for the rest of his life, okay, like I get it. But if you think that there's like a little sliver of hope there that the kid could, all of a sudden, like his frame projects that he could get stronger and something happens. You don't know. That's why you have to sign more
No,
guys.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. But again, do we trust the organization to be able to even identify those guys? I don't know.
I mean,
Uh,
Marco Patty's
you know,
done. He's signed some pretty big names,
yeah,
and
I'll give you that. In the international market, the Sox have done well. That's I mean, I'll granted, Marco Patty and his guys seem to have a pretty good pulse, especially on the Cuban market.
yeah. I mean,
Uh,
you can say what you will. I mean, like that's the thing is that again, you don't know that that's what Marco Patty wants to spend his money on.
no,
That's the
you're
thing
right.
that we don't know. It could like obviously Luis Robert worked out. And does he want to go out and get a guy that's like quote unquote closer to major league ready, like an Oscar Colas or a Yoelqui Cespedes, or does he want to go out and sign more young guys? I mean, I will say that like there are some guys that like Ronnie Hernandez, catcher from Venezuela, that like people are stoked on. A lot of people are saying that he's got projectability and he looks good and everything. Like is that what Marco Patty would rather do, or does he want to sign 22-year-old, 23-year-old guys instead? Like I genuinely don't know. Like what? Like you can't know. That's part of the problem with the White Sox is that you don't know whether it's this person making this decision or whether it's this person making the decision. Like where the directives are coming from. You don't know if like he's having a conversation with Rick Hahn in his office, and as soon as he leaves, Kenny Williams like, hey, Marco, come over here and talk to me over here in the hallway. And he walks around the corner into the stairwell and then starts telling him something different. And because he's the vice president, he's going to be like, all right, well, you're the vice president, so I guess I'll listen to you. I mean, it's like, who knows? With the way those
you're
two
right.
guys are arguing, you're like, I have no idea. Nobody can really have 100% clarity on what's going on there, and you don't know who to blame, and that's always been a problem. So I guess we'll see. I mean, he was just named the International Scout of the Year, so maybe he does know what he's doing. I don't know, but we're about to find out. If he gets let go, then obviously they don't have any faith in him. So we'll see what happens. So,
Oh, wouldn't that be something? International Scout of the Year. They fired his ass. What?
out of here, pal. Was it like
You're too good at your job.
Ricky Renteria, second in the year in manager of the year voting? You're fired.
See, nah, you were just a bridge. You're just a
So
rebuild
ridiculous.
manager.
Yeah.
Get out of here. Take a hike.
Rockies about to lose their 100th game. Oh, how do you like that? I think Batista was a great get. Yeah, no, ladder enjoyer. I 100%. Aldrin Batista is awesome. And for all I know, I'm blanking on his name right now. The other guy, Mercado, I believe, is that his name? I think that's his name.
That sounds great.
Yeah, I can't remember what the guy's name is, but the other guy, we haven't seen him. He only pitched in the complex league. Yeah, Maximo Acosta. There you go.
Acosta.
Yeah, Acosta.
Thanks for that poll.
I don't know if
Ladder.
like I've heard that he's got really great stuff. Haven't seen him pitch yet, so like that's generally one of those things where until I see him get a little bit of time, like in front of my eyeballs, I generally don't talk about guys. But I've heard that he's got some really nasty stuff, so we'll see.
Well, yeah. How can you trust? I mean, you really can't trust anything you hear from this organization.
I can't trust
what their scouts and what their talking heads are telling you is coming from you. I said it when Beefloaf was on the show. I believe you watch more minor league baseball than our scouting and development department does.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like when I see, like when I get these reports from like, MLB Pipeline or from, what's his name, Keith Law. Like I hear these things about guys, and they're like, yeah, I saw him pitch one inning down in Arizona, and I'm like, Okay, so because you saw him for one inning or one game when you were down in Arizona, like that's what I'm going to base my entire opinion on. Like I just don't personally, I don't do that. Drives me
No,
nuts.
you can't.
Yeah, it's like I and like the thing is when I read reports from all these national guys talking about our guys in our system, and I've watched them play like 90 plus games in a season, and they're like, yeah, this guy can't do this and he can't do that, but he's really good at this, and I'm like, that's not right. So I generally kind of just brush those things off.
No,
Yeah, that's I mean I like getting the
no.
rankings. I like getting, like Colson Montgomery, like his number going up in the MLB top 100. Like I like that. But I mean, you know,
uh, yeah, I know. Like, oh, so and so did no,
yeah.
no,
All
no.
right. So speaking of last thing on the White Sox front office, did you happen to catch the article from the interview of David Wilder, the former international scout? Did you happen to read that?
I did not. Little caught a little snippets here and there on the old X machine, but I did not catch the full story.
Yeah, guy who gets arrested for stealing money and taking kickbacks and stuff. Uh,
Yeah,
I mean, the problem is that if I knew the guy, I wouldn't trust him farther than I could throw him.
right.
And but the thing is that because some of the stuff that he says is so believable, it kind of makes it hard, to say, well, you're a criminal, so I don't trust you because I know, I've seen how this organization works, so I kind of don't. I'll forward you the article, but um, I just wanted to see if you had read it yet or
No,
not.
I mean, like I said, I kind of caught something. I saw like a single tweet on Twitter actually, and I don't remember who it was from, but somebody brought something up about that, and just another one of those White Sox things. You know what I mean? Like you look at that and you go, "Are you kidding me?
Yep.
Come on, man!" But yeah, I'll have to read into that.
But
It
the thing
sounds
is,
interesting.
it doesn't seem like it's that far out of line from what I would expect. So, yeah, so there's that. So I'm just gonna go run through some things here real quick for the MILB wrap up, just because the season's over, and I don't want to delve too far into prospects or whatever, because I don't want to stretch this thing out. We've already been going for like an hour and 10, so I don't want to
Yeah,
run
no,
this thing out too long. But I
right, right.
just want you to see that. I want you to tell me if you see a common thread here. The Charlotte Knights managed to avoid losing 100 games. They finished 53-96. Luckily, when they lost their 96 game, there was only one game left, so they didn't have a chance to lose 100. So that's nice. In the second half, though, they went 18-56. Wow, that is that is
That's
something.
rough.
And I will say though,
Yeah,
towards the end of the year, when they got some influx of talent after July, like Xavier Fernandez came up, Yoelqui Cespedes came up.
Popeye and
Yeah, I mean Popeye was the last
yeah, I mean
two
he wasn't
two
till the end
weeks,
there.
and Yoelqui
Yeah,
Cespedes
and you
was the
get
last 3 weeks because um, Clint Frazier dislocated his ankle. So they
right.
brought him up then.
You get out there, get sent down
Yeah, I
from
mean
the MLB
there
club.
yeah, exactly. There was a couple of things that kind of like aided them in the last month to be able to win a few games, but like there was a point where I think in the second half they were like 6 and like 35 or something like that. So they won
Yeah, it was
quite a bit
god
more
awful.
games towards the last month and a half of the season, but yeah, 53-96. No pitching. As it turns out, having no starting pitching is detrimental to winning baseball games. Shocker.
Hmm.
Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, that was awesome.
No starting pitching and a grossly aging outfield.
Yeah, that whole situation this year was it was really weird. I don't know, that roster was just kind of strange, and like I know
It
like
was a ridiculous roster.
I
If
kind
you
of but
ask
the thing
me.
was is that like I kind of understood it though because
Well,
it was
early in the
like
season.
yeah, well I mean like the thing was is that no outfielders really pushed it to say hey we deserve to get promoted. You know like Mieses had a okay year at best.
His
Uelki
first half was
Cespedes.
better than his second half.
No, his first half was terrible.
Oh, I'm
Uelki's
sorry.
first half
Yeah,
was better.
right.
Uelki walked a ton, but he hit like 220 in Double A, and then he came up to Charlotte, and then he hit like I don't know, like 375 or something like that for the last 3 weeks
Yeah,
of the
well,
season.
wasn't that the thing that they said they were working on down in Double A though? His pitch selection. So they were thrilled that he was walking more, but the power numbers went away with it,
Yeah, they
and
did, but
the
the thing
batting
was
average
is that yeah,
took
he walked
a big
more,
dip.
but he didn't get any hits. That was
Right.
part of the other problem. It's like
Right.
if you're gonna walk more, like at least like when you're not striking out, try and get a hit every once in a while, and
Well,
it
and that's
just
the
never
thing.
happened.
It's always been talked about that a guy that walks more is going to see better pitches, right? And then you don't normally see a walk rate go up as dramatically as his did, and watch a batting average drop as dramatically as his did.
You
It's
know?
that is a rare occasion. You know, you're usually going to see a lot better pitches if the more often you walk, and
Yeah.
that was a conundrum all of its own.
Yeah, and his batting average goes from like 265 in 2022 to like 205 this
Right.
year in the same league. It's like what's going on here? So like I understood why they kept on picking up all these old outfielders, like the Frazier and the Victor Reyes, and they traded Tyler,
Trace
traded for
Thompson.
Tyler Naquin for cash. Yeah, the Trace Thompson acquisition on that Lance Lynn deal. Um, like I
Yeah.
got it because none of them like really showed out and said, "Hey, I deserve a look," and like just none of them really hit all that well. And in Double A, that can the first half. Let's look. I'm gonna look at here at the first half season for the Barons. In the first half, they were 25 and 44. Um, and then in the second half, they were 26 and 43. So I mean, I guess they literally did the exact same thing in both halves. So, um, overall, they end up finishing in last place, 51 and 87. Um, and I will say that the pitching, they had some arms in Double A, that were good right off the bat. But the problem is that you had that super tack ball, which
Yeah, nobody
like
liked it.
screwed up like their command, and especially with Matt Thompson and Christian Mena who are throwing
I was
curveballs
waiting.
that are nasty. It's tough.
Yeah, and Christian Mena, I mean, the guy he just looked fantastic for the better part of the season.
Second
And
second half anyway. Like the first half, like he was hit or
yeah,
miss.
well,
Like
everybody kind of struggled.
yeah,
The entire league struggled the first half though, as far as pitching goes. That wasn't just a Barons thing, you know what I mean? It was I won't say okay. I see you
overall
shaking your head a little bit.
overall the numbers were down, yes, but
Right.
other teams did less bad than the Barons did.
Well, you know,
Just throwing that out there. And it also
I'm trying to
doesn't help.
sugarcoat it a little bit here,
No,
but
yeah,
yeah,
and
you're right.
like fine, but like the thing is that like I don't want to give anybody false hope either. But
Well, okay, all
let's
right.
let's throw this. We'll throw this out there that Colson Montgomery and Brian Ramos were both injured for like the entire first half of the year. So
Yeah, I thought Colson Montgomery died. for a while there. We didn't hear nothing about him
Yeah,
for
he
forever.
was he was gone for a long time. And so there was a lot of when you take those two guys out of a lineup, so the guys are going to see less quality pitches if they're not afraid of anybody taking advantage of their shortcomings. So pitchers are more able to kind of play with their food, if you know what I'm saying. Like they don't have to come right at you. They can get you to go chasing, especially if you're more prone to go chasing at stuff. Or you guys don't have, or the roster's not, if you're not worried about, the team getting a timely hit, then you don't have to come right at them, in all at bats. If there's a guy that you think that can hurt you, fine,
You kind of
pitch
just
to the next guy.
pitch around him,
Yep.
dangle that hook, and see if you get him to bite. And if you don't, oh well,
Yep.
no harm, no foul.
All right. So then moving to Winston-Salem. For the year, they finished 60 and 66, 6 games below 500. They are in 5th out of 6 in the South Division of the Southern Atlantic League, South Atlantic League.
I think I'm finding this trend here.
Maybe, huh?
You were asking me to find, but please continue.
Yeah. So in the first half, they were 34 and 29 and in second place. And then in the second half, they are 26 and 37 in 4th place. But overall, over the entire year, they end up in 5th place. The pitching kind of wore down at the end of some of those guys, like Cole Seamus in particular. Like he started off really good, and in the second half, like his numbers kind of took a dip. And then I don't know for sure. But I think Tommy John is possibly what happened there, but I don't know for sure. And of course, with it being the White Sox, nobody's made any official statements on what's going on with him. See if I can do a little bit of digging here and see if I can find out what happened. But
Yeah, well, and it's not shocking that pitching kind of seemed to fall off in the second half, just because especially in the A level ball clubs, some of those guys were whipped like horses.
yeah,
There was a couple of guys that were getting used
yeah.
quite a bit.
Also, first full season for some of these guys, So
Right.
like when
Right.
they're
You guys haven't seen that kind of workload.
yeah, when you're in for like 120 games, in for a 120 game season, like most of these guys, none of them have done that,
Yeah, these guys
So
are coming out of high school and college where they play half that.
yep. So yeah, long season, 126 games they played this year, so long season for them. And like I've said, individual successes. There's been a lot of stuff that's gone right. Terrell Tatum was taken out of that lineup, in like June, I think, and he was kind of like one of those. He was like one of the guys that really, kind of propelled that offense. With walk. I mean, he led the league in walks, led the league in stolen bases. And when he was taken out of the lineup, there wasn't as much action. The pitchers not focusing on guys on the base paths. And Chapey started off really really well, and then he hurt his hand, and then he came back from
Lloyd
that.
L. Chappie, Chapey.
Yeah, and then he came back from the hand, and he started to hit again, and then it seemed like everybody, seemed like there was some tape on him, and they started to find holes in his swing, and it took him like 2 months to figure, to make the adjustment, and he started hitting again later on in the year. But at that point, the record was kind of shot, and they got the bump with Brooks Baldwin and Bryce Willits, and Tim Elko got brought up there, after June. So they got like some offensive help, but then some of the offense. Then Elko got bumped to Double A, so they lost that bat in the lineup, and just
Speaking of Tim Elko, and fantastic season to him. Kudos, guy. He just does it all. But I have to ask: is it just me, or does he look like he's 35 years old? I'm not talking about body or the way he moves. Just
it's the mustache, man.
The baseball cards. Yeah, that caterpillar he's got going on. I don't know. Just it adds like 15 years to his.
Yeah, I mean he kind of he's got a nice mustache on him. So
he does.
Yeah, so moving along to the last one here, finishing at 67 and 64, the only team to finish above 500 for the White Sox organization, the Kannapolis Cannonballers.
Yeah,
like that. That comes on the back of a ton of pitching. So Mason Adams started the season with the Cannonballers. First full season, I believe he made he might have made a start last year, but I can't remember if he did or not. So I think his first start with the Cannonballers, I believe, was in April. He got bumped to the Dash and then got bumped to Birmingham. So he made it. So obviously he was good. And he only made I think 5 starts with Birmingham and maybe 6 or 7 with the Dash. So, I mean, he wasn't there for a very long time. But then you got Connor McCullough, who threw a no-hitter in Kannapolis. And then he got bumped to Winston-Salem. I mean, basically, Kannapolis had some nice pitching. So they rode on the back of the pitching, and they had good offense with Tim Elko there to start the year. Also a 3-level, a member of the 3-level club. And, they had a bunch of promotions as well, but they did so well, during that early part of the season. They had a lull, and then they picked it back up, with and got a little bit of an infusion with some of the college guys that just got drafted. So they kind of went on a little bit of a mini heater later on in the season. So that's your one team in the entire organization that finished above 500. So the common thread here is that culture, winning culture. So we'll see what happens here with the with the assignments. Maybe they'll come out. I'll come along. I'll think about it some more.
I mean, here's that word again, though.
I know. I had to bring it up.
Culture.
I think we'll have to go through this and figure out where guys are going to end up to start next year and whatever. And
that's the fun part of the off season is some of those prognostications that I like to call educated guesses, and we're usually pretty close on those.
Pseudo educated.
Yeah.
All right. So last thing.
Anything's possible with this organization too. That's a curveball.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that things go as I was, at least mostly as I was thinking. They don't hamstring guys or give way too aggressive of assignments. We'll see though. All right, Arizona Fall League. White Sox get 8 players in the Arizona Fall League. 2 starting pitchers, 3 relief pitchers, 2 infielders, and an outfielder. Colson Montgomery just tweeted today that he just landed in Arizona to get there and start going to work. Nicky Delmonico will be the White Sox representative in the coaching staff. So that's cool. But the 2 starting pitchers are Yosimar Kuzin, who was the late addition to the Winston-Salem Dash from Cuba, who had some nice starts for Winston-Salem, and he had some control issues here and there, but he's got some nice breaking pitches, and his fastball is pretty good, especially when playing off of those breaking balls and his changeup. So that should be interesting to see down there. The other starting pitcher, Jake Eater. So we get, some nice view. We'll get to see what Jake Eater can do down there because, there's a lot of top prospects down there. from different clubs. So he'll be facing some pretty decent hitting from some of these teams. And I know that
Yeah, but
they
I was just gonna say we'll finally get a little bit more of a taste from him. I mean, obviously we've seen some, but we're gonna get a bigger taste of him because he is coming off of that injury, you know, in long rehab, in you know, top prospect at one point or not.
yeah, and he
I need to see more.
yeah, they sent him to Arizona, and
Right.
they found some mechanical issues with him before the end of the season, so they sent him to Arizona to, you know, work through some of those
Work that
mechanical
out.
issues. So, you know, hopefully that sorted it out. Your relief pitchers, one of the other guys that we got in that Dodgers trade, Jordan Leisure, is going to be there. He of the 98-mile-an-hour fastball, nasty slider, and
Yeah, looking forward to seeing more of him.
now a curveball. So that's an interesting development. It's a pretty decent curveball as well. So that's nice. Um, we also get to see Fraser Ellard, who was injured for a lot of the year. He's the guy who has my favorite pre-inning ritual where he throws the rosin bag down really hard on the mound. Makes me laugh every
Yeah,
time.
like he's
Hilarious.
angry at.
So funny.
It
Um,
is pretty good. It's good stuff.
yeah, and then we also get Addison Coffey, um, who also nasty, nasty stuff. And I'm interested to see what he does. You know, he got brought up to Birmingham. I don't. He might even be a member of the Three Levels Club. Now that I think of it, let me take a look. See here, real quick. Is he a member of the three level? Oh no, only two levels this year. He did Advanced A and Double A. I couldn't remember if he had started in Canny just for like an appearance or two, but that is a negative. But he's got really nasty breaking pitches. Got a nice fastball. Lots of carry on the fastball. I'm excited for him. Like, you know, somebody asked me like who are guys that don't get nearly enough hype. Wilfred Veras was my number one answer, but Tristan Stivers and Addison Coffey are two of the other guys that I had mentioned in that response to that tweet. So we got 5 pitchers, so that's cool. The infielders, obviously the top prospect in the entire league, Colson Montgomery, is shortstop for your Glendale Desert Dogs. And Brian Ramos also making an appearance. You know, we talked about earlier that both of those guys missed a ton of time. So, you know, we get a couple of, you know, like about a month and a week,
Both of
hopefully.
them play the same primary position, but
No, it's third base and second base, or third base and shortstop. So we should be.
wasn't Ramos drafted as a shortstop?
I don't think so. I thought he was third base. I
No.
thought he was drafted as that. Well, I mean, he's a international signing, so he'd be.
Oh,
So
yeah, right. He was. I guess he was brought into the club as
yeah, I
shortstop. If I'm not
thought it was
mistaken.
as a third baseman, but I
I
could
could
be
be wrong
wrong.
on that.
Um, I mean, there's a ton of guys that have moved from shortstop to third base, so you know, wouldn't surprise me if that was originally what he was signed in as. And then the outfielder is Jacob Burke, who started off the season with a
Big fan.
52 game on base streak in between Kannapolis and Winston Salem. That was you know, he missed like the first 3 weeks or a month of the season or whatever, and then went on a 52 game on base streak. And guy plays, you know, plays center field like his hair's on fire. Luckily, it's not.
Yeah, big fan of him.
Beautiful hair. So, really looking forward to the, you know, to be able to watch these guys some more and see them in a different scenario. You know, not seeing them tied to the White Sox per se. You know, hopefully, with, you know, being with some of these other guys, that they can get out there and get like a, you know, hopefully get some of that winning stuff going on. You know, that winning stuff.
What is that again?
Yeah, exactly. I don't remember. But yeah, there's some other, there's some pretty other some good prospects from some of the other teams that are going to be there. The top prospect for the Mets, Kevin Parada, he's their number one prospect catcher. So I don't know, Brain Bonacci. I mean, there are some decent players coming from the other teams. So hopefully it's a pretty decent roster and they can have some fun, and hopefully we get to see them on MLB Network for the Fall League Championship game. That would be nice.
Sure would be. Go
Um,
Dogs.
you got anything? You got anything else for this week?
Uh, I mean, there was one thing I wanted to touch on that we've kind of talked about in the past, but I just wanted to ask you if you had an opportunity to see the little short, quick YouTube video that Beefloaf put out the other day.
Oh yeah,
Only about
the
six
TA
and a half.
contract.
Yeah,
Yes, I
yeah.
did.
And I watched that as well too. I feel like he made some pretty valid points, and I wanted to kind of pick your brain and see what your thoughts were on the dive that he did, into not just Tim Anderson, but anybody that fit into his category, guys that were coming up, guys that fell into like a 1.5 or worse situation going into their 30s or whatever it was. I don't remember the exact query that he pulled up there, but
Yeah.
I just want to know your thoughts on that whole situation and what it looked like for a shortstop on an expiring contract the following season. I think is what it was. A shortstop with an expiring contract after a one negative 1.5 WAR season or worse.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying. I'm just saying. It's not like we didn't talk about trading him last year before the trade deadline.
Right.
Last year,
Right.
when he was playing well, we talked about
Right.
trading him.
Right.
He's still here. And now we're talking about picking up a $14 million option. So
Because it's cheap in
cheap compared to what, though,
right,
is my
in
question. You
respect to
know?
other shortstops, but does the production add up to that $14 million? And at this point, I'd have to say no.
You
And
know
now he's turning the corner on 30.
exactly. He's 14. He's gonna be 31 starting next year. I'm almost positive. I think he is already 30.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
So, like players, now that steroids are banned, players don't generally get better after they turn 30, especially ones that rely on speed, you know, and let's also throw this out there on BABIP, like guys
Oh,
that rely on things like that, generally as they age don't get better. And you're going to
yeah,
sign him for
and
14 million when you could have Jose Rodriguez play short. You could have Lenin Sosa play short. I know that like a lot of people are down on Lenin Sosa because of the numbers he's put up, but I mean, we've gone over this 100 times that it generally takes him some significant time to get going, but when he does, he starts to hit. Now, I'm not saying that
right,
it's
and it's not
100% that
just
it's going to happen.
and it's not just, there's not a number that you can put on plate appearances. It's gotta be, like, consecutive games played.
Yeah,
He needs
exactly.
that consistency.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So you could have one of those guys play for $750,000 for the year, or you could sign Tim Anderson and pray that somehow he manages to bounce back after a year and a half of bad play, bad defensive play all the time. He's got good range, but his arm is, his throws are always wonky donkey all over the place, so I mean, you know what I'm saying?
And my
Like,
thoughts yeah, my thought on this is basically it probably where you were going, but, it's pretty obvious to me that this White Sox team is not gonna fix itself over the offseason. And people will say and Beefloaf brought this up in that video that, this year's shortstop free agent market is a fairly weak one. There's a couple of names out there, but none of them are really jump off the page kind of guys that are going to do anything for your ball club to put you over the top, especially if you're the White Sox, where you've got just hole on top of hole to fill. Uh, my thought is why? Why spend $14 million on him? Let him go. If somebody's willing to throw out some money at him and get him a contract, give him his $1 million, part ways with him, because he's not going to be the guy who is going to get this ball club into the playoffs next year.
That's what I'm saying, is that this team's not
So
competing next year. So
no, they're not competing.
why are we going to spend $14 million on a guy who does not play good defense and hasn't hit in a year and a half?
Right. And your only hope is that, okay, maybe if we do sign him and he comes here, your only hope is first 2.5, 3 months of the season, he shows out and maybe you can trade him to a contender and get something in return. But that, after what we've seen the last year and a half, 2 years, that's a pretty big hope. We're hanging our hat on hopes and dreams again in that scenario, and I'm honestly tired of that.
Yeah, and like the other thing here is that they were able to trade some of the other guys, the guys that they were talking about clearing house with. How do we know that just nobody wanted to take Tim Anderson because he was playing so bad, and that's why they couldn't trade him? But he's a problem.
Right.
I don't
mean,
know.
That club option, or you could have looked at it like with the $1 million buyout. He was one of those guys on an expiring contract. You could make that argument.
Yep.
And when making that argument, why wasn't he dealt? Well, because you weren't going to get what you felt like was any sort of value, if anything at all, because there was probably nobody that wanted him.
That's my
He's
thinking.
last in the league in starting shortstops in DRS with a -16.
Yeah, so brutal.
And I think he might be 17 now after yesterday's game.
Yeah, so he's
tonight
gone.
He missed the bag by a foot on a double play attempt that should have never even been attempted.
You know how we were talking before about not only his DRS, but flashback to last year and to spring training this year, how everybody was so hyped to get rid of Larry Garcia. Larry Garcia last year had I believe a 36 WRC plus. Now Tim Anderson, last time I checked, which I will admit has been like a week or two, last I checked he had a 63 WRC plus. The main difference here being that he had I believe he had a slightly higher average, but Larry had a slightly higher average for most, roughly around the same. He just didn't have as many, like his weighted runs weren't as high, but he had a +1 DRS. And he was not good on defense. He was bad on defense, but he was a +1. Tim Anderson is like -16 or -17. That's terrible. I mean, he's just giving away runs.
Yeah.
I mean, what? Yeah. Seriously, what's the motivation to keep him? I'm just saying.
There isn't one, honestly. And I know there's going to be a lot of folks out there to say, yeah, but he's cheap. And the
$14 million is not cheap.
It's not cheap for if you're going to suck. It's cheap if you're getting Tim Anderson of 2019, 2020, even, parts of 21. But what we've seen in most of 22 and 23, that's not cheap.
I'm just going to throw this out there as my last thought on this. Eric Gonzalez, who's in Charlotte, could give you a 63 WRC plus and get you a positive DRS at shortstop next year.
I think Lenny Sosa can do the same.
Yeah. I'm just saying, there are plenty of people that could give you the same production that you've gotten out of Tim Anderson with better defense.
For a tenth or less of the money.
Will help your pitching, which they're going to need. and you might get a 75 or 80 WRC plus, out of an Eric Gonzalez. You might get even above 100 from somebody like Lenny Sosa or Jose Rodriguez. I would hope, but you'll never know until you try. And paying Tim Anderson $14 million with the production that they've got does not seem like a wise idea. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. I just couldn't let that go after saying that. And we are in that last week of the season. I'm sure this will be a hot topic of discussion for the better part of the off season. But I figured I would throw it out there now because I saw that video just in the last few days here.
Yeah, I watched it as well. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We have no idea what the heck's gonna happen this offseason. So it's. I will say that, wouldn't necessarily say I'm excited, but I'm kind of excited because it's like maybe there'll be something new. Maybe
Right.
we
That's
won't
exactly
be
what I
so
was
inept.
getting at. Right.
I don't
That's
know.
exactly what I was getting at earlier in the show is I won't call it a complete renewed sense of hope, but there's a sense of relief that this season is over and there is some hope that because there are some new faces, maybe we'll see some new ideas and some new philosophies make their way into this ball club. And I'm going to use that word again. There's a shift in culture.
Culture.
So,
Yep.
it's all I got, man.
Yep. At Daily White Sox on Twitter, whitesoxdaily.substack.com. You can find our written content, also this podcast. You can also find this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You can find this stream on YouTube, or you can come here and watch it live as well on twitch.tv/White Sox Daily. Also, search for us on YouTube and on Facebook, White Sox Daily, and you'll find our pages there. Some of the stuff is some of the highlights and things are on there. Yeah, so it's good having you back, Danny. And
It's good to be back. Thank you.
yeah, we'll next week it'll be the having a funeral for the 2023 White Sox. Thankfully.
Yeah, we can finally put that one to bed.
Oh, can't wait. I've been waiting for this season to be over for like 3.5 months.
Oh, you're not the only one, bro.
Yeah. My name is Ian Eskridge, at iEskridge on the Twitters, or X, whatever you want to call it. Danny Miller, my co-host, at Danny Miller WSD. We will be on next week, probably, I'm guessing, probably on Monday, back to normal, but we shall see. Thanks for coming and hanging out in the chat, and thanks for watching stream. We appreciate you guys, and we will catch up with you next week. You have a great night, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye. And there we go.